Yara's hand trembles as she stares at the medical scanner, its display confirming the impossible. She's pregnant after a single encounter with Brian Turner, the human diplomat. The young Hazari female blinks her large, almond-shaped eyes in disbelief, her iridescent skin shimmering with a mix of excitement and fear. Alarms blare throughout the Hazari medical facility as word spreads. Doctors and scientists rush to verify the results, their elongated fingers flying over holographic interfaces. The news reaches the Hazari High Council within minutes, causing an uproar in the towering crystal spires of the government district. "Impossible," declares High Counselor Zix, his tendrils quivering with agitation. "A human impregnating a Hazari on the first try? This defies millennia of reproductive struggles." The council chamber erupts into chaos. Some members argue for immediate termination of the pregnancy, citing risks to genetic purity. Others see an opportunity to solve their species' fertility crisis. As debates rage, a decision is made to summon Brian Turner. At the human embassy, a stark metal structure contrasting with the organic architecture of the Hazari capital, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez paces nervously. She turns to face Brian as he enters her office, his confident stride faltering under her stern gaze. "Turner, do you have any idea what you've done?" she demands, gesturing to the holographic news reports floating around them. "This pregnancy could destabilize our entire diplomatic mission." Brian's face pales as he absorbs the gravity of the situation. We were careful. How is this even possible?" Before Rodriguez can respond, reports of growing unrest flood in. Hazari extremists gather in the streets, their normally placid features contorted with anger. They wave signs denouncing human influence and demanding the removal of all off-worlders. "We need to get you to safety," Rodriguez declares, activating the embassy's security protocols. "The Hazari government is requesting your presence, but we can't risk." Her words are cut short as a Hazari security team materializes in the room, their advanced teleportation technology bypassing human defenses. "Brian Turner, you will come with us," the lead officer states, voice devoid of emotion. Across the city, Yara finds herself surrounded by a similar team. "For your protection," they insist, ushering her into a secure transport. As Brian and Yara are whisked away to separate locations, the Hazari medical community mobilizes. Top geneticists and reproductive specialists converge on secure facilities, eager to study this unprecedented pregnancy. They hope to unlock the secrets of human Hazari compatibility and potentially revolutionize their own reproductive capabilities. News of the miraculous conception spreads beyond the Hazari homeworld like wildfire. Other alien races receive the information with a mix of fascination and concern. The Zarn Collective sees it as a potential shift in the galactic balance of power, while the Terran Alliance views it as an opportunity to strengthen interspecies relations. Amidst the growing political and scientific storm, Brian and Yara find themselves at the center of a story that will reshape the future of both their species. As they grapple with their unexpected connection and its far-reaching consequences, the galaxy watches and waits, knowing that nothing will ever be the same again. As the galaxy held its breath, the Hazari homeworld became a crucible of tension and possibility. The shockwaves from Brian and Yara's unexpected union reverberated through every level of society, from the highest echelons of power to the bustling streets of the capital. In the stark confines of the human embassy, Brian Turner paced restlessly, his mind racing with the implications of his actions. The constant hum of heightened security measures served as a grim reminder of the precarious situation he now found himself in. "Turner," Ambassador Rodriguez's voice cut through his thoughts, "we've managed to arrange a meeting with Yara. The Hazari High Council has agreed, albeit reluctantly." Brian's heart leaped. "When? Where?" "At a secure medical facility. They're keeping the location classified for now," Rodriguez replied, her expression a mix of concern and commitment. "This is delicate, Brian. We need to tread carefully." As Brian was escorted from the embassy, the streets outside teemed with a mix of curious onlookers and protesters. The air crackled with tension, the typically serene Hazari capital now a powder keg of conflicting emotions. Upon arrival at the medical facility, Brian found himself face-to-face with Dr. Zira, the lead Hazari xenobiologist. Her large, almond-shaped eyes scrutinized him with a mixture of scientific curiosity and barely concealed excitement. "Mr. Turner," she began, her voice a melodious trill, "I must inform you of some extraordinary findings regarding your offspring." Brian swallowed hard, bracing himself for the news. "The embryo is developing at an unprecedented rate," Dr. Zira continued, gesturing to a holographic display of cellular structures. "It's exhibiting traits from both species, but the rate of growth, it's simply astounding." As Dr. Zira delved into the intricacies of the hybrid fetus, Brian's mind whirled. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders like a physical burden. Meanwhile, in another section of the facility, Yara underwent a battery of non-invasive tests. Dr. Krell, the male Hazari physician leading her care, marveled at the readings on his instruments. "Extraordinary," he muttered, his tendrils quivering with excitement. "The genetic combinations we're seeing. They could be the key to solving our species' fertility crisis." Yara lay still, her iridescent skin shimmering with a mix of fear and wonder. Is the baby healthy?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Krell's features softened. "Yes, Yara, your child is thriving." As news of these findings spread, the mood on the Hazari homeworld began to shift. Citizens who had initially recoiled at the idea of a human-Hazari hybrid now saw a glimmer of hope. Crowds gathered in public spaces, discussing the potential implications with growing excitement. However, not everyone welcomed this change. In the shadows of the capital, Vex, a charismatic male Hazari, rallied his followers. "We cannot allow our genetic purity to be compromised," he thundered, his words igniting a fire in the eyes of his extremist supporters. As tensions rose, Admiral Thorne, the highest-ranking human military officer on the planet, sprang into action. Security measures around human installations were tightened, and diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent communications. Finally, the moment arrived for Brian and Yara to meet. As Brian entered the secure room, his eyes immediately found Yara. She sat on the edge of a medical bed, her slender form seeming both fragile and strong. "Yara," he breathed, crossing the room in quick strides. "Brian," she replied, her large eyes welling with a mix of emotions. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, the weight of their shared experience hanging between them. I don't know what to say," Brian finally managed, running a hand through his hair. Yara's lips curved into a small smile. "Neither do I. This is unexpected." As they talked, their initial awkwardness gave way to a deeper connection. They shared their fears, their hopes, and the overwhelming sense of responsibility they both felt. "Brian," Yara said suddenly, her face flushing a deeper shade of blue, "I've been experiencing these intense cravings. For Earth foods." Brian's eyebrows shot up. "Earth foods? Like what?" "Chocolate," Yara admitted sheepishly. "And something called pickles?" Dr. Zira, who had been quietly observing, perked up at this information. "Fascinating," she murmured, her mind already racing with new theories about the hybrid fetus's nutritional needs. Their conversation was abruptly cut short by the blaring of alarms. The facility's security system sprang to life, blast doors slamming shut as guards rushed to their positions. "What's happening?" Yara cried, her skin pulsing with fear. A Hazari security officer burst into the room. "Extremists have breached the outer perimeter," he reported breathlessly. "We're in lockdown." Brian's military training kicked in. Without hesitation, he grabbed a weapon from the security officer. "Stay behind me," he told Yara, positioning himself between her and the door. As the sounds of conflict grew closer, Brian tightened his grip on the weapon. He glanced at Yara, seeing the fear in her eyes, but also a steely perseverance. In that moment, he knew he would do whatever it took to protect her and their unborn child. The door trembled under the force of an explosion. As smoke filled the air and shouts echoed through the facility, Brian and Yara braced themselves for what was to come. The future of human-Hazari relations hung in the balance, and they were at the very center of the storm. The door shuddered under another explosion, threatening to give way at any moment. Brian's muscles tensed as he tightened his grip on the weapon, ready to defend Yara and their unborn child at all costs. "This way," Dr. Zira called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. She pressed her hand against a seemingly ordinary wall panel, revealing a hidden passage. "Quickly!" Without hesitation, Brian ushered Yara towards the secret entrance. Dr. Krell followed close behind, carrying essential medical equipment. As they rushed through the narrow corridor, the sounds of battle grew more distant. The group emerged into a secure inner chamber, its walls lined with advanced technology. Dr. Zira sealed the entrance behind them, engaging multiple layers of security protocols. "We should be safe here for now," she announced, her large eyes scanning the room. Brian helped Yara settle onto a medical bed, noticing her labored breathing. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern etched on his face. Yara winced, her iridescent skin pulsing with an unusual pattern. I don't know. Something feels different." Dr. Krell quickly set up monitoring equipment, his elongated fingers working with practiced efficiency. As he studied the readings, his tendrils quivered with surprise. "Extraordinary," he murmured. "The fetus, it's growing at an accelerated rate." Dr. Zira rushed to examine the data, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "Impossible," she breathed. "The pregnancy has advanced by several weeks in just hours." Brian's eyes widened as he processed this information. Is that normal for human Hazari hybrids?" "There's nothing normal about this situation, Mr. Turner," Dr. Zira replied, her voice a mix of excitement and concern. As the medical team worked to understand the rapid changes in Yara's body, Brian noticed a small, inconspicuous panel near the far wall. His military training kicked in, recognizing it as a potential communication device. He hurried over and began examining the panel, searching for a way to activate it. After a few tense moments, a holographic interface flickered to life. "This is Brian Turner," he spoke urgently into the device. "I'm with Yara and the medical team in a secure chamber. We need immediate assistance." The response came quickly, Ambassador Rodriguez's voice filled with relief. "Brian, thank goodness. We've been trying to reach you. What's your situation?" Brian relayed the critical information about their location and Yara's accelerated pregnancy. As he spoke, he could hear the ambassador issuing rapid-fire orders to her staff. "We're working on an extraction plan," Rodriguez assured him. "Stay put and keep that channel open." Meanwhile, Dr. Zira made another startling discovery. Her eyes widened as she studied the latest scan results. "This is unprecedented," she announced, her voice filled with awe. Brian rushed back to Yara's side. "What is it?" Dr. Krell's tendrils trembled with excitement as he explained, "The fetus is showing signs of advanced cognitive function. Its brain activity, it's off the charts." Yara gasped, her hand instinctively moving to her swollen abdomen. "What does that mean for our child?" Before anyone could answer, the chamber's communication system crackled to life. A gruff voice filled the room, tainted with hatred and desperation. "This is Vex," the extremist leader snarled. "We know you're in there. Surrender the human and the abomination, or we'll blast our way in." Brian's mind raced, searching for a way to defuse the situation. Drawing on his diplomatic training, he took a deep breath and responded. "Vex, listen to me," he began, his voice steady and calm. "I understand your concerns about preserving Hazari genetic purity, but have you considered the potential benefits of this child?" There was a pause, then Vex's voice returned, permeated with suspicion. "What benefits?" Brian continued, choosing his words carefully. "This hybrid could be the key to solving your species' fertility issues. Think about it. A child with the strengths of both humans and Hazari. This could be a new beginning for your people." The silence that followed was deafening. Brian held his breath, hoping his words had made an impact. Suddenly, the sounds of renewed fighting erupted outside the chamber. A new voice, strong and commanding, came through the communication system. "This is Captain Nara of the Hazari Elite Guard. We've engaged the extremists. Hold your position." Relief washed over Brian as he realized help had arrived. He turned to Yara, ready to share the good news, but stopped short at the sight of her face contorted in pain. "Brian," she gasped, clutching her abdomen. I think it's time." Dr. Krell rushed to her side, confirming with a quick scan what they all feared. "She's going into labor," he announced, his voice tight with tension. As the sounds of battle raged outside and Yara's labor intensified within, Brian found himself at the center of a storm that would shape the future of human-Hazari relations. He grasped Yara's hand, preparing to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The chaos outside seemed distant as Brian focused on Yara, her face contorted in pain. "We need to move quickly," Dr. Krell announced, his tendrils quivering with urgency. "The labor is progressing at an unprecedented rate." Dr. Zira sprang into action, activating a series of holographic displays that filled the air with pulsing biometric data. "Her hormone levels are off the charts," she reported, her large eyes widening in amazement. Brian held Yara's hand, feeling her grip tighten as another contraction hit. "What can I do?" he asked, his voice tight with concern. Before anyone could answer, the chamber's communication system crackled to life. "This is Dr. Emily Chen." From the human embassy, a calm, authoritative voice announced, "We've received your distress call and are en route with specialized equipment." Relief washed over Brian's face. "Thank goodness," he breathed. Minutes later, the chamber's secure door slid open, admitting Dr. Chen and her team. They wheeled in carts laden with unfamiliar medical devices, quickly setting up alongside the Hazari equipment. Dr. Chen, a petite woman with sharp eyes and steady hands, immediately assessed the situation. "The fetus's accelerated growth is causing complications," she announced, studying the holographic displays. "We need to act fast." As the human and Hazari medical teams worked in tandem, Brian watched in awe. Dr. Chen's expertise in xenobiology seamlessly complemented Dr. Krell and Dr. Zira's intimate knowledge of Hazari physiology. Yara cried out, her iridescent skin pulsing with an intense glow. "Something's wrong," she gasped, her large eyes filled with fear. Dr. Chen's face grew serious as she studied the latest scans. "The child's size is posing a risk," she explained. "We need to consider an alternative delivery method." Brian's heart raced as he processed the implications. "What are our options?" Dr. Chen exchanged glances with her Hazari colleagues. "I propose an experimental procedure," she said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "It combines human surgical techniques with Hazari healing technology." Dr. Krell's tendrils twitched with excitement. "Fascinating," he murmured. "But the risks—" "We don't have much choice," Dr. Zira interjected, her eyes on Yara's vital signs. "Conventional methods could endanger both mother and child." Brian looked at Yara, seeing the pain and willpower in her eyes. "What do you think?" he asked softly. Yara nodded, her breath coming in short gasps. "Do it," she managed. With Yara and Brian's consent, the medical team sprang into action. Dr. Chen took the lead, her hands steady as she began the delicate procedure. Dr. Krell and Dr. Zira assisted, their unique Hazari abilities complementing the human surgical techniques. Brian watched, his heart in his throat, as the doctors worked. The chamber hummed with energy as human and Hazari technology merged, creating a symphony of healing. Outside, the sounds of conflict had faded, replaced by an eerie silence. Brian could almost feel the weight of expectation pressing down on them. Hours passed in a blur of tense concentration and carefully controlled chaos. Finally, a new sound pierced the air, the cry of a newborn. "It's a boy," Dr. Chen announced, her voice filled with wonder as she held up the child. Brian's eyes widened as he took in the sight of his son. The baby's skin shimmered with the iridescent glow of the Hazari, but his facial features were undeniably human. He was beautiful, a perfect blend of two worlds. As Dr. Chen placed the child in Brian's arms, he felt a surge of emotion unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He turned to Yara, who was being tended to by Dr. Krell and Dr. Zira. "He's perfect," Brian whispered, carefully bringing the baby close so Yara could see. Yara's eyes filled with tears of joy as she reached out to touch her son's face. "Hello, little one," she murmured, her voice weak but filled with love. The moment was interrupted by Dr. Chen's professional tone. "We need to run some tests," she said gently. "The child's unique physiology requires careful monitoring." As the medical team began their examinations, Brian couldn't tear his eyes away from his son. The baby's eyes, when they opened, were a striking mix of human and Hazari characteristics, seeming to hold the wisdom of both races. "Remarkable," Dr. Zira breathed, studying the readouts from their initial scans. "His cellular structure is unlike anything I've ever seen." Dr. Krell nodded in agreement. "The potential implications for both our species are staggering," he added, his tendrils quivering with excitement. As the doctors continued their work, Brian's attention was drawn to the communication panel. It had come to life with a flurry of activity, messages pouring in from both human and Hazari authorities. "The news is spreading," Brian realized, his voice a mix of awe and apprehension. Dr. Chen looked up from her examination of the child. "This is just the beginning," she said, her eyes meeting Brian's. "The birth of this child will change everything." As if to underscore her words, the chamber's main display lit up with an incoming transmission. The stern face of Admiral Thorne filled the screen. "Turner," the Admiral began, his voice gruff but tinged with an uncharacteristic note of wonder. "We need to talk about what happens next." Brian looked from the Admiral's face to his newborn son, then to Yara, who was watching him with a mix of exhaustion and drive. He took a deep breath, knowing that the challenges they had faced so far were only the beginning. The future stretched out before them, full of unknowns and possibilities. As Brian cradled his son, he felt the weight of two worlds resting on his shoulders. Whatever came next, he knew their lives would never be the same. The weight of two worlds rested on Brian's shoulders as he cradled his newborn son. The chamber buzzed with activity as the medical team continued their examinations, their voices a mix of excitement and professional detachment. Dr. Chen's eyes gleamed with scientific curiosity as she studied the readouts from her handheld scanner. "Incredible," she murmured. "The child's cellular structure is unlike anything I've ever seen." Dr. Krell nodded, his tendrils quivering with excitement. "Indeed, the fusion of human and Hazari DNA has produced truly remarkable results." As the doctors conferred, Brian turned his attention back to the main display, where Admiral Thorne's stern face awaited a response. "Admiral," he began, his voice steady despite his exhaustion, "I understand we have much to discuss, but right now, my priority is the health and safety of my family." The Admiral's expression softened slightly. "Of course, Turner. We'll reconvene when you've had a chance to rest. In the meantime, I'm dispatching additional security to your location." As the transmission ended, Brian felt a wave of relief wash over him. He looked down at his son, marveling at the perfect blend of human and Hazari features. "We need to give him a name," he said softly to Yara. Yara smiled weakly, still recovering from the intense labor. "Zane," she whispered. "It means gift in my native tongue." Brian nodded, feeling the rightness of the name. "Zane it is." Over the next few days, the medical facility transformed into a hub of intense scientific activity. Dr. Chen, Dr. Krell, and Dr. Zira formed a joint research team, working tirelessly to study Zane's unique physiology. Brian watched in amazement as his son developed at an extraordinary rate. By the end of the first week, Zane had already reached milestones that would take human infants months to achieve. "His muscular development is off the charts," Dr. Chen reported during one of their daily briefings, "and his cognitive functions are advancing at an unprecedented rate." As news of Zane's remarkable abilities spread, Brian noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The facility, once a sanctuary, began to feel more like a fishbowl. Representatives from both human and Hazari governments requested daily updates, their interest barely concealing their ulterior motives. One afternoon, as Brian was helping Yara with her physical therapy, Captain Nara entered the room, her expression grave. "Mr. Turner, we need to talk," she said, her voice low. "We've uncovered a plot by a splinter group of Hazari extremists. They're planning to kidnap Zane." Brian felt his heart rate spike. He looked at Yara, who had gone pale at the news. "What are we going to do?" she asked, her voice trembling. Captain Nara's posture straightened, her professional demeanor taking over. "We're increasing security measures immediately. I'm working closely with your human military personnel to create a comprehensive protection plan." As they discussed the details of the new security protocols, Brian's mind raced. The situation was becoming more complex by the day. He knew they needed a long-term solution, a way to protect Zane while navigating the political minefield they found themselves in. His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Chen, her face flushed with excitement. "I've made a breakthrough," she announced, her eyes shining. "Zane's hybrid DNA contains unique sequences that could potentially be used to create a universal fertility treatment. It could benefit both humans and Hazari." The implications of this discovery hung heavy in the air. Brian could already imagine the increased pressure this would put on them from both sides. As if on cue, the facility's communication system chimed. "Mr. Turner," a voice announced, "Ambassador Marcus Steele and a delegation from Earth have just arrived. They're requesting an immediate meeting." Brian exchanged a look with Yara, seeing his own mix of apprehension and tenacity reflected in her eyes. He gently squeezed her hand before turning to face the others. "All right," he said, his voice firm. "Let's see what the ambassador has to say. But remember, our priority is Zane's safety and well-being. We're not agreeing to anything without careful consideration." As they prepared to meet the Earth delegation, Brian couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of a new era. The choices they made in the coming days would shape not just their family's future, but potentially the future of both human and Hazari civilizations. With a deep breath, he straightened his shoulders and headed towards the conference room, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The weight of two worlds still rested on his shoulders, but now it was joined by the fierce tenacity of a father protecting his child. As Brian entered the conference room, he found himself face-to-face with Ambassador Marcus Steele, a tall, imposing figure with piercing blue eyes and a neatly trimmed silver beard. "Mr. Turner," Steele greeted, his voice a mix of authority and curiosity. "I trust you understand the gravity of our situation." Brian nodded, taking a seat at the large oval table. "I do, Ambassador, but I hope you understand that my son's well-being is my primary concern." Steele leaned forward, his expression softening slightly. "Of course, and it's precisely because of your son that we're here. We believe that Zane represents a unique opportunity for both our species." Over the next hour, Steele outlined a series of proposed scientific and cultural exchange programs. The plans were ambitious, aimed at fostering better understanding between humans and Hazari, while also studying Zane's unique physiology. As Brian listened, he felt a mix of hope and apprehension. The potential benefits were clear, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Zane was being viewed more as a scientific marvel than a child. "We're not agreeing to anything without careful consideration," Brian reiterated, his voice firm. "Zane is a child, not a lab specimen." Steele nodded, his expression grave. "Understood, Mr. Turner. But consider this. The knowledge we gain could benefit both our species immensely." As the meeting concluded, Brian's mind raced with the implications of Steele's proposals. He made his way back to Yara's room, where Dr. Chen was conducting her daily checkup. "Brian," Dr. Chen called out as he entered, "you need to see this." She pulled up a holographic display showing Yara's cellular structure. "Yara's body is adapting," she explained, her voice filled with excitement. "It's as if carrying Zane has altered her physiology to better accommodate human genetic material." Yara's eyes widened at this news. "What does this mean?" she asked, her voice a mix of wonder and concern. Dr. Chen's eyes sparkled with scientific curiosity. "It could mean a lot of things. There's potential for more successful human Hazari breeding in the future. This could be the key to solving the Hazari fertility issues." As they discussed the implications of this discovery, Brian's mind was already working on a plan. He knew they needed a solution that would satisfy both human and Hazari interests while protecting his family. The next day, Brian requested a joint meeting with Ambassador Steele and the Hazari High Council. As he stood before the assembled dignitaries, he took a deep breath. "I propose the establishment of a joint human Hazari research facility," he announced, "on a neutral planet where we can study the implications of Zane's unique physiology in a controlled, ethical manner." The room erupted in a flurry of discussion. The Hazari High Council members chittered amongst themselves, their tendrils twitching with excitement and apprehension. After hours of intense negotiation, an agreement was reached. The Hazari, seeing an opportunity to address their species' fertility issues, agreed to the proposal. As plans for the new research colony began to take shape, Brian felt a weight lift from his shoulders. However, his relief was short-lived. Captain Nara burst into his quarters one evening, her usual composure replaced by almost unchecked alarm. "Mr. Turner," she said, her voice low and urgent, "we've uncovered a plot within the Hazari military. A group led by Commander Zax plans to seize Zane for military purposes. They believe his genetic material could be used to create enhanced Hazari soldiers." Brian's blood ran cold. He immediately contacted Admiral Thorne, who mobilized a joint human Hazari security team. As tensions escalated, Brian could feel the increasing pressure from all sides. The situation became even more complex when Dr. Vex, the Hazari scientist studying Zane, made a startling discovery. The child's hybrid DNA contains sequences that could potentially unlock rapid healing and enhanced physical abilities in both humans and Hazari, Dr. Vex announced during an emergency briefing. The news spread quickly, intensifying the political pressure surrounding Brian's family. He knew they were running out of time. Late one night, as Brian paced in his quarters, Captain Nara approached him with a determined look in her eyes. "Mr. Turner," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I have a plan to get you and your family to safety." Brian listened intently as Nara outlined a daring escape plan. Using his diplomatic connections, they would arrange for a secret transport to take them off-world, disguised as a routine diplomatic mission. As they finalized the details, alarms blared throughout the facility. Commander Zax's forces had begun their assault. "We need to move now," Nara urged, her hand on her weapon. Brian raced to Yara's room, where he found her already preparing Zane for travel. Dr. Chen was there too, frantically downloading research data onto a portable drive. "We can't leave this behind," Dr. Chen insisted, her eyes wild with the fear of losing years of groundbreaking research. As the sounds of combat echoed through the corridors, Brian led his family through a hidden passage that Nara had prepared. They could hear the chaos of the diversionary attack that Nara's team was launching to buy them time. Emerging from the passage, they found themselves at a small, nondescript spaceport. A sleek transport ship awaited them, its engines humming with readiness. As they boarded the ship, Brian caught sight of Admiral Thorne's forces engaging Commander Zax's team in a fierce firefight. The Admiral himself stood at the forefront, his face set in unbreakable spirit as he provided cover for their escape. The ship's hatch sealed with a hiss, and Brian felt the lurch of takeoff. As they broke through the planet's atmosphere, he held Yara and Zane close, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. Looking down at Zane, Brian was struck by how calm the child seemed, utterly oblivious to the turmoil surrounding him. As if sensing his father's gaze, Zane looked up, his eyes displaying an intelligence far beyond his age. As the stars outside the viewports stretched into lines of light, signaling their jump to hyperspace, Brian knew their journey was not nearly finished. They were headed towards the newly established joint research colony, but what awaited them there was anyone's guess. For now they were safe, but as Brian watched Yara tend to Zane, he couldn't help but wonder about the far-reaching consequences of their escape. What ripple effects would this have on human-Hazari relations? How would both societies react to the loss of their miraculous child? The ship hummed steadily as it carried them towards an uncertain future, leaving behind two worlds forever changed by the existence of one extraordinary child. As the transport ship hurtled through hyperspace, Brian gazed out the viewport, his mind racing with thoughts of their uncertain future. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the cabin, startling Yara and causing Zane to stir in her arms. "Proximity alert," the ship's computer announced. "Unknown vessel detected on intercept course." Brian's heart raced as he rushed to the cockpit, fearing their pursuers had caught up with them. He activated the comm system, ready to call for help, when a familiar voice crackled through the speakers. "Turner family, this is Dr. Chen. Please don't be alarmed. I'm here to join you." Relief washed over Brian as he recognized the doctor's voice. He quickly adjusted their course to allow Dr. Chen's small craft to dock with their transport. As the airlock cycled open, Dr. Chen stumbled in, clutching a data drive to her chest. I couldn't leave it all behind, she gasped, her eyes wild with a mix of excitement and fear. The research, it's too important. With Dr. Chen safely aboard, they continued their journey to the newly established Joint Research Colony. As they approached their destination, the gas giant loomed large in the view screen, its swirling storms a backdrop to the habitable moon that would be their new home. The colony, christened Harmony Point, came into view as they began their descent. Its architecture was a striking blend of human and Hazari design, with sleek metallic structures intertwined with organic, root-like formations. As their ship touched down on the landing pad, Brian saw a welcoming committee waiting for them. A mixed group of human and Hazari scientists and administrators stood ready to greet the newcomers. Dr. Xander Reed, a tall, lean man with salt and pepper hair, stepped forward as they disembarked. "Welcome to Harmony Point," he said, his voice warm and authoritative. "I'm Dr. Reed, lead scientist of the colony. We've prepared special living quarters for your family." As they were led through the colony, Brian marveled at how seamlessly the two species' technologies and living spaces had been integrated. Their new home was a spacious apartment that catered to both human and Hazari needs, with adaptive furniture and environmental controls. Over the next few weeks, Brian and Yara watched in amazement as Zane's growth accelerated at an unprecedented rate. By the end of the first month, their son had the appearance and abilities of a human toddler, yet displayed cognitive skills far beyond his apparent age. One morning, as Zane sat playing with a holographic puzzle designed to challenge adult Hazari, Dr. Reed approached Brian and Yara. "Your son's development is truly remarkable," he said, his eyes gleaming with scientific curiosity. "I'd like to propose a series of non-invasive tests to monitor his progress more closely." Before Brian could respond, the colony's communication system chimed. Ambassador Steele's holographic image appeared, his expression grave. "Mr. Turner, I'm afraid I have some concerning news. Your escape has caused quite a stir back home and on the Hazari world. Both governments are accusing each other of attempting to exploit Zane's genetic makeup." Brian felt a knot form in his stomach as Steele continued. "I'm working on a solution. I've proposed a joint oversight committee to monitor the research at Harmony Point. It's our best chance at maintaining peace and protecting your family." As the days passed, the colony buzzed with activity. Dr. Chen and Dr. Reed worked tirelessly in the lab, often emerging with excited expressions and hushed conversations. One evening, they called Brian and Yara to the research center. "We've made a breakthrough," Dr. Chen announced, her eyes shining with excitement. She pulled up a holographic display of a complex molecular structure. "This protein, unique to Zane's hybrid DNA, has the potential to enhance fertility in both humans and Hazari." The news spread quickly, and soon Harmony Point saw an influx of new researchers, all eager to study Zane and the promising protein. The colony's population swelled, and with it came increased pressure on Brian and Yara to allow more extensive studies of their son. As Brian watched Zane interact with a group of human and Hazari children, he felt torn between his desire for a normal family life and the potential benefits his son's genetics could bring to both species. His internal struggle was mirrored in Yara, who had begun to exhibit more human-like traits. Her skin had taken on a smoother texture, and her voice had developed a more melodic quality. One day, as they prepared for Zane's routine medical examination, Captain Nara approached Brian, her expression tense. "Mr. Turner, we've uncovered evidence of potential spies from both human and Hazari military factions within the colony," she said in a low voice. "I'm implementing stricter security protocols and establishing a dedicated team to protect your family and our research." Brian nodded, grateful for Nara's vigilance, but worried about the implications. As they entered the medical bay, he pushed his concerns aside, focusing on Zane as Dr. Reed began the examination. Suddenly, Zane turned to Brian, his eyes wide and intense. Brian felt a strange sensation in his mind, like a gentle touch. Then he heard his son's voice, clear as day, but his lips weren't moving. "Dad, I'm okay. Don't worry." Brian gasped, looking at Yara and the medical staff, who all wore expressions of shock and wonder. Dr. Reed's medical scanner clattered to the floor. Did you all hear that?" Brian asked, his voice trembling. Yara nodded, tears forming in her eyes. He spoke to me too, she whispered. Dr. Reed quickly regained his composure, his face alight with amazement. Telepathic communication, he breathed. This is unprecedented. As the news of Zane's newfound ability spread through Harmony Point, Brian could feel the weight of countless eyes upon them. He knew that this development would only intensify the interest from both human and Hazari governments. Looking at his son, who was now calmly playing with a Hazari puzzle toy, Brian couldn't help but wonder what other surprises Zane's unique heritage might hold, and what challenges these surprises might bring to their life on this distant moon. As Brian pondered the implications of Zane's unique heritage, a commotion outside their quarters snapped him back to the present. Captain Nara burst into the room, her face etched with concern. Mr. Turner, we need to implement immediate security measures. Zane's telepathic abilities have been detected by our monitoring systems. Brian's eyes widened in shock. What? How is that possible? We're not entirely sure, Nara replied, her voice low and urgent. But we can't risk this information spreading beyond Harmony Point. I'm initiating a strict information control protocol, effective immediately. As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the colony. Nara's team sprang into action, securing all communication channels and restricting access to key areas of the facility. Dr. Chen and Dr. Reed arrived moments later, their faces a mix of excitement and apprehension. We need to conduct some tests, Dr. Chen said, her eyes darting to Zane, who was watching the proceedings with eerie calmness. Over the next few days, Harmony Point became a hive of activity as the scientists worked tirelessly to understand the extent of Zane's abilities. Brian and Yara watched with a mixture of pride and fear as their son underwent a battery of carefully monitored experiments. During one such test, Dr. Reed gasped in astonishment. It's not just telepathy, he exclaimed, staring at the readouts on his datapad. Zane can influence emotions and even physical sensations in those around him. The implications of this discovery sent ripples of excitement and unease through the colony. Some saw it as a breakthrough that could revolutionize interspecies communication, while others feared the potential for manipulation and control. As the days wore on, Brian and Yara found themselves struggling to maintain any semblance of normalcy for their rapidly growing child. They made the difficult decision to limit Zane's exposure to the outside world, converting a section of their quarters into a specially designed living area. It's for the best, Yara said softly, as they watched Zane play in his new environment. He needs a safe space away from all the scrutiny. Brian nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of their situation. I just wish we could give him a normal childhood. Their moment of reflection was interrupted by Captain Nara. Ambassador Steele has arrived, she announced, her posture tense. He wants to meet with you immediately. The ambassador's presence brought a new level of intensity to Harmony Point. As they sat in the conference room, Steele's piercing gaze swept over Brian and Yara. The situation has become far more complex than we anticipated, Steele began, his voice grave. Both human and Hazari governments are demanding more access to Zane and the research being conducted here. Brian felt his anger rising. He's our son, not some lab experiment. Steele held up a placating hand. I understand your concerns, Mr. Turner. That's why I'm proposing the formation of an interspecies ethics committee to oversee all research involving Zane. It's our best chance at preventing exploitation while still allowing for scientific progress. As they discussed the details of Steele's proposal, Brian couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking a dangerous tightrope. The stakes seemed to grow higher with each passing day. Meanwhile, in the shadows of Harmony Point, a clandestine meeting was taking place. Marcus Graves, a charismatic human with a dangerous glint in his eye, addressed a group of human and Hazari extremists. The child is an abomination, Graves hissed, his words filled with venom. A threat to the purity of both our species. Zela, a former Hazari military officer, nodded in agreement. We must act soon before his powers grow beyond our ability to control. As the group plotted in secret, Captain Nara's intelligence network picked up whispers of their activities. She immediately bolstered security around the Turner family, handpicking a team of loyal human and Hazari personnel to form an elite protective unit. In the midst of these escalating tensions, Dr. Chen made a startling discovery. She burst into Brian and Yara's quarters, her eyes wide with excitement and concern. "Yara, your DNA, it's changing," she explained breathlessly. "It's incorporating more human genetic material. I believe it's a result of carrying Zane and your continued exposure to human physiology." Yara looked down at her hands, noticing for the first time how her skin had taken on a more human-like texture. "Is it dangerous?" she asked, her voice trembling. Dr. Chen shook her head. "Not dangerous, but unprecedented. We need to monitor these changes closely." As Brian grappled with this new development, he sought out Dr. Reed for answers. The scientist listened intently before offering his theory. "It's possible that Zane's unique genetic makeup is influencing Yara's physiology through a form of adaptive resonance," Reed explained. "This raises questions about the potential for wider genetic changes in both human and Hazari populations through prolonged interaction." The implications of this theory sent shockwaves through the scientific community at Harmony Point. News of these developments quickly reached the highest levels of human and Hazari governments, triggering a flurry of activity in both species' home systems. Reports began to filter in of fleet movements in nearby star systems. Both humans and Hazari claimed these were purely for research purposes, but the military implications were clear to all. As the pressure mounted, Ambassador Steele requested another meeting with Brian. The ambassador's face was grim as he delivered the news. "Earth's government is considering extracting Zane for his own protection and further study on Earth," Steele said, his voice heavy with the weight of his words. Brian felt as if the floor had dropped out from beneath him. "You can't be serious," he stammered, his legs shaking at the implications. Before Steele could respond, the lights in the room flickered and died. An eerie silence fell over Harmony Point as every system went dark. In the pitch blackness, Brian heard Zane's voice in his mind, filled with fear and confusion. "Dad, what's happening? I'm scared." As the emergency lights slowly came to life, Brian realized they were facing a crisis unlike anything they had encountered before. The time for half measures and compromise had passed. He would have to make a choice, one that would determine not only his family's fate, but potentially the future of human Hazari relations. In the dim red glow of the emergency lighting, Brian met Steele's eyes, his persistence hardening. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain. He would do whatever it took to protect his family. Family. As Brian's determined gaze met Steele's, the lights flickered back to life, revealing the tense faces of those gathered in the room. Before anyone could speak, Captain Nara burst through the door, her face etched with concern. "We've got a situation," she announced, her voice tight. "The blackout affected the entire colony. We're implementing emergency protocols now." Brian's heart raced as he thought of Zane. "What caused it?" he asked, already suspecting the answer. Dr. Chen, who had been monitoring Zane's vitals remotely, stepped forward. "It appears to have been an uncontrolled telepathic outburst from Zane," she explained, her eyes wide with a mix of concern and fascination. "His powers are growing at an exponential rate." The room erupted into a flurry of activity as Captain Nara began issuing orders to her security team. "Secure all critical areas and establish a protective perimeter around the Turner family's quarters," she commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. As they moved through the corridors of Harmony Point, Brian could feel the tension in the air. Colonists whispered in hushed tones, their eyes darting nervously as the security team passed. The incident had served as a stark reminder of the potential power and danger posed by his young son. Upon reaching their quarters, Brian found Yara cradling Zane, who looked pale and shaken. "He's exhausted," Yara said softly, her eyes meeting Brian's with a mixture of love and worry. Dr. Chen and Dr. Reed arrived moments later, their faces set with perseverance. "We need to accelerate our research," Dr. Reed said, his voice low and urgent. "We've designed a series of controlled experiments to help Zane understand and manage his abilities." Over the next few days, Brian watched as his son underwent a battery of tests. Each experiment revealed new facets of Zane's rapidly evolving powers. It wasn't just telepathy anymore. Zane could manipulate electrical fields, explaining the recent blackout. As news of Zane's growing abilities spread throughout the colony, Brian could feel the shift in atmosphere. Tensions between various factions began to escalate. He overheard whispers of a group led by Marcus Graves and a Hazari named Zila, who viewed Zane as a threat to both species. Amidst the growing unrest, Ambassador Steele approached Brian with a controversial proposal. "We need to consider relocating Zane to a specialized facility on Earth," Steele said, his voice grave. "It's the only way to ensure his safety and proper study." Brian felt a surge of anger at the suggestion. "Absolutely not," he snapped, his protective instincts flaring. "We're not sending our son away to be treated like a lab specimen." As Brian grappled with the mounting pressures, he noticed changes in Yara as well. Her skin had developed a unique pattern, blending Hazari iridescence with human pigmentation. More surprisingly, she began exhibiting rudimentary telepathic abilities, allowing her to communicate with Zane on a deeper level. Dr. Chen's eyes lit up with excitement as she examined Yara. "It's fascinating," she exclaimed. "Your body seems to be adapting to better care for Zane. This could have profound implications for interspecies genetics." The arrival of a Hazari science vessel added another layer of complexity to the situation. Led by Dr. Shiri, a renowned expert in evolutionary biology, the team requested permission to study Zane and Yara. Their presence only heightened the sense of urgency surrounding the family. Feeling increasingly cornered, Brian made a difficult decision. Late one night, after Yara and Zane had fallen asleep, he sent an encrypted message to Admiral Thorne, requesting assistance in evacuating his family from Harmony Point. However, Brian's plans were derailed when Zane experienced another power surge. This time, the child inadvertently tapped into the colony's communication systems, briefly connecting the minds of every inhabitant of Harmony Point. For a moment, the fears, hopes, and intentions of all parties were laid bare. Brian felt a flood of emotions and thoughts wash over him. The curiosity and excitement of the scientists, the fear and hatred of the extremists, the concern and dedication of Captain Nara and her security team. As quickly as it began, the shared consciousness faded. Brian blinked, his palms sweating from the experience. He turned to see Yara staring at him, her eyes wide with understanding. They both knew that everything had changed. Captain Nara's voice crackled over the intercom, breaking the stunned silence that had fallen over the colony. "Security teams, apprehend Marcus Graves and his associates immediately," she ordered, her voice tight with controlled fury. In the chaos that followed, Dr. Shiri approached Brian and Yara. The Hazari scientist's eyes gleamed with an intensity that made Brian uneasy. "I have a proposal for you," Dr. Shiri said, her voice low and urgent. "One that could change everything." As Brian listened to Dr. Shiri's offer of sanctuary at a secret Hazari research facility, he felt the weight of the decision before him. He looked at Yara, her skin shimmering with its new, unique pattern, and then at Zane, their extraordinary child who held so much potential and posed so many risks. The future of their family, and potentially both species, hung in the balance. Brian took a deep breath, knowing that whatever choice they made would set them on a path from which there was no turning back. Brian looked at Yara, her eyes reflecting the same mixture of uncertainty and commitment he felt. He turned to Dr. Shiri, his decision made. "We'll go with you," Brian said, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his mind. "But I need your word that we'll be safe and that Zane won't be treated as a mere experiment." Dr. Shiri nodded solemnly. "You have my word. Our facility prioritizes the well-being of all participants in our research." Captain Nara, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. "I'll help you leave," she said, her voice low. "But we need to move quickly and quietly." Over the next few hours, as the colony buzzed with the aftermath of Zane's telepathic surge, Brian and Yara packed essentials while Captain Nara orchestrated their escape. Under the guise of a routine maintenance operation, they were smuggled onto Dr. Shiri's research vessel. As they boarded the ship, Brian felt a pang of guilt for leaving without saying goodbye to Dr. Chen and Dr. Reed. He hoped they would understand the necessity of their hasty departure. The sleek Hazari vessel hummed to life, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to Harmony Point's sensors. As they prepared to depart, Zane suddenly tensed in Yara's arms, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "Zane, what's wrong?" Yara asked, her voice tinged with concern. Before anyone could react, a wave of energy pulsed from the child, enveloping the ship in a shimmering field. The vessel's instruments flickered momentarily before stabilizing. Dr. Ziri's eyes widened in amazement. "Incredible," she whispered. "He's created an energy field that's masking our departure even further. We're completely undetectable now." As Harmony Point receded into the distance, Brian felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. They were leaving behind everything familiar, venturing into the unknown with only the promise of safety and the hope for answers. During the journey, Dr. Ziri explained more about their destination. "The facility is located on a remote moon in a system far from both human and Hazari-controlled space," she said, her voice filled with pride. "We've dedicated our research to studying evolutionary biology and genetic engineering, with the goal of advancing both our species." Brian listened intently, his mind racing with questions. He noticed Yara's skin seemed to shimmer more intensely in the ship's lighting, the blend of human and Hazari characteristics becoming more pronounced by the hour. Dr. Ziri noticed too, her scientific curiosity piqued. "Yara, your transformation is accelerating," she observed, running a scanner over Yara's arm. "It seems your body is adapting at an incredible rate. This could be a response to better nurture and connect with Zane." As they traveled deeper into uncharted space, Brian couldn't help but wonder about the repercussions of their departure. His thoughts turned to Harmony Point and the chaos they had left behind. Back at the colony, their disappearance had indeed caused an uproar. Ambassador Steele paced in his office, his face a mask of frustration as he barked orders into a communication device. "I want every inch of this colony searched," he demanded. "They couldn't have just vanished into thin air." Meanwhile, Admiral Thorne, unaware of Brian's change of plans, had dispatched search parties to rendezvous points scattered across nearby systems. The disappearance of the Turner family had become a flashpoint for rising tensions between humans and Hazari. Dr. Chen and Dr. Reed worked tirelessly in their lab, analyzing data from the night of the disappearance. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she studied a readout. "Look at this energy signature," she said, pointing to a spike on the screen. "It's unlike anything we've seen before. Could this be related to Zane's abilities?" As theories and accusations flew across space, Dr. Ziri's ship approached its destination. Brian and Yara gasped as they caught their first glimpse of the secret Hazari facility. Built into the side of a massive lunar crater, the outpost was a marvel of engineering, its sleek lines and shimmering surfaces, a testament to Hazari technological prowess. The ship docked smoothly, and as the airlock hissed open, Brian took a deep breath. He held Yara's hand tightly as they stepped into their new home, Zane cradled securely in her arms. A tall, distinguished-looking Hazari approached them, his iridescent skin glowing softly in the facility's light. "Welcome," he said, his voice warm and resonant. "I am Dr. Chorus, lead scientist of this facility. We've been eagerly awaiting your arrival." As Dr. Chorus led them through the facility, Brian's eyes darted from one marvel to another. Advanced holographic displays lined the walls, showing complex genetic models and simulations. In one lab, he saw a human scientist working side by side with a Hazari researcher, their focus intense as they manipulated a 3D projection of a DNA strand. "Our goal here is ambitious," Dr. Chorus explained as they walked. "We aim to unlock the evolutionary potential of both humans and Hazari, with the ultimate objective of creating a new, hybrid species that combines the best traits of both races." Brian felt a mix of awe and unease at the implications of this research. He looked at Zane, who was taking in his surroundings with wide-eyed fascination. The child, now resembling a human 5-year-old, seemed to be absorbing information at an astounding rate, his eyes darting from one piece of equipment to another with uncanny understanding. As they settled into their new quarters, a spacious suite adapted for both human and Hazari comfort, Brian couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed a threshold. Their decision to come here had set them on a path that would not only shape their family's future, but potentially the future of both species. Little did they know that at that very moment, long-range sensors were detecting the approach of multiple ships, a joint task force of human and Hazari vessels. Their intentions unknown, but their presence a harbinger of the challenges to come. As Brian contemplated their uncertain future, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility, shattering the moment of relative calm. Dr. Chorus burst into their quarters, his iridescent skin pulsing with agitation. "We've detected multiple ships approaching," he announced, his voice tense. "It appears to be a joint human and Hazari task force." Brian's heart raced as he exchanged a worried glance with Yara. They had known this moment might come, but the reality of it was still jarring. Dr. Ziri rushed in behind Dr. Chorus, her eyes wide with urgency. "We're initiating emergency protocols," she said, her fingers flying over a holographic control panel. "The facility's defense systems are activating now." As if on cue, a low hum reverberated through the structure, and Brian watched in awe as previously hidden energy barriers shimmered into existence around the perimeter of the facility. Yara clutched Zane close to her chest, her newly transformed skin glowing with an intensified iridescence. "What should we do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. Brian took a deep breath, weighing their options. After a moment, he nodded resolutely. "We trust in the facility's defenses," he said, looking at Dr. Ziri and Dr. Chorus, "and we trust in Zane." As if responding to his father's words, Zane's eyes began to glow with an otherworldly light. The child, now resembling a human 5-year-old, but with distinct Hazari features, raised his small hands. Energy crackled around his fingers, and suddenly a pulse of power emanated from him, enveloping the entire research outpost in a shimmering field of energy. Dr. Ziri gasped, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her concern. "Incredible," she murmured, studying the readings on her handheld device. "He's created an energy field that's interfering with the approaching ship's sensors and communication systems." Outside, in the cold vacuum of space, Admiral Thorne frowned at his command console aboard the lead human vessel. "What's going on?" he demanded, turning to his science officer. "Why can't we pinpoint the facility's location?" "Unknown, sir," the officer replied, frustration evident in his voice. "There's some kind of energy field disrupting our sensors. We can't get a clear reading on anything down there." On the bridge of the Hazari flagship, High Commander Zex faced a similar dilemma. The experienced Hazari leader's skin rippled with annoyance as he studied the inconclusive sensor data. After a tense exchange of communications, Thorne and Zex reluctantly agreed to a temporary alliance. They would combine their forces to locate and retrieve the Turner family, despite their mutual distrust. Back in the facility, Dr. Chorus burst into the lab where Brian, Yara, and Zane had gathered with Dr. Shiri. His eyes were wide with excitement. "You need to see this," he said, gesturing for them to follow him. In the main research lab, a holographic display showed a magnified view of Zane's stem cells. Brian watched in amazement as the cells seemed to pulse and shift before his eyes. "The stress of the current situation has triggered a rapid mutation in Zane's stem cells," Dr. Chorus explained, his voice filled with awe. "They're exhibiting enhanced regenerative properties, far beyond anything we've ever seen in human or Hazari biology." Dr. Shiri studied the display intently, her mind racing with possibilities. After a moment, she turned to Brian and Yara, her expression serious. "I have a proposal," she said. "It's risky, but it might be our best chance to repel the incoming forces without causing harm." As Dr. Ziri outlined her plan to use Zane's evolved stem cells to create a biological defense system, Brian felt a mix of hope and apprehension. He looked at Yara, seeing his own conflicting emotions reflected in her eyes. "I know it's asking a lot," Dr. Ziri said softly, "but this could be our best chance to protect Zane and our research." Brian took Yara's hand, feeling the unique texture of her transformed skin. After a moment of silent communication, they both nodded. "We'll do it," Brian said, his voice firm. As Dr. Siri and her team began their work, alarms blared once again. The joint task force had breached the outer layers of Zane's energy field and was deploying ground troops to the moon's surface. Yara suddenly gasped, her body tensing. Brian watched in amazement as her skin rippled and shifted, taking on new patterns and textures. She reached out, touching a nearby control panel, and the facility's systems responded instantly to her command. "I can feel the facility," Yara said, her voice filled with wonder. It's like an extension of myself. Dr. Chorus nodded excitedly. Your transformation is accelerating, he explained. You're developing new abilities that seem perfectly suited to our current situation. As Yara coordinated the facility's defenses using her newfound abilities, Brian attempted to establish communication with the approaching forces. However, the lingering effects of Zane's energy field continued to disrupt long-range communications, leaving them isolated. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the facility's outer chambers. Time was running out. Dr. Siri emerged from her lab, her face a mixture of triumph and trepidation. We've done it, she announced, holding up a container filled with a swirling, iridescent substance. Using Zane's stem cells, we've created a biological agent that could temporarily alter the genetic makeup of the approaching troops, giving them characteristics of both humans and Hazari. Brian stared at the container, understanding the weight of the decision before them. And you think this will stop the fighting? He asked. Dr. Ziri nodded solemnly. If it works as we hope, it should foster understanding and prevent violent conflict. But, she added, her voice grave, we haven't had time to test it. There are risks. As the sound of the approaching troops grew louder, Brian and Yara exchanged a look. With heavy hearts, they gave their consent. Zane, sensing the gravity of the situation, stepped forward. His eyes glowed with an intensity that made Brian's breath catch in his throat. The child placed his hands on the container, and a pulse of energy surged through the biological agent. He's connected with them, Yara gasped, her newly enhanced senses picking up on Zane's expanded telepathic abilities. He can feel their thoughts, their fears. Dr. Ziri quickly began preparations to release the agent through the facility's ventilation system. As the facility's doors began to buckle under the force of the military assault, Brian held Yara and Zane close. The young hybrid child, now the key to potential peace or further conflict, raised his hands. Energy crackled around him as he prepared to face the incoming troops, his incredible powers ready to shape the future of human-Hazari relations. The doors burst open, and a flood of armored figures poured into the room. In that moment, as the untested biological agent was released into the air, Brian realized that everything they had experienced up to this point had been merely a prelude. The true test of their family's strength and the future of both species was about to begin. The true test of their family's strength and the future of both species was about to unfold before their eyes. As the facility's doors gave way with a deafening crash, Dr. Siri's hand slammed down on the control panel, releasing the biological agent through the ventilation system. A fine, shimmering mist filled the air, enveloping everyone in the room and beyond. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then gasps and exclamations of surprise echoed through the chamber as the genetic alterations took hold. Human soldiers stared in wonder at their hands, now glowing with a faint iridescence. Hazari troops touched their faces, feeling the subtle changes in their facial structure. In the midst of the confusion, Zane stepped forward, his small form radiating an otherworldly energy. His eyes blazed with an intense light, and suddenly, a flood of vivid images washed over everyone present. Brian felt his mind expanding, filled with breathtaking vistas of Hazari worlds he had never seen. He saw the beauty of their crystal cities, felt the joy of their communal gatherings. Beside him, a human soldier dropped his weapon, overwhelmed by the vision of a Hazari family welcoming a newborn, their love and devotion palpable. Hazari troops experienced the warmth of a human family dinner, the excitement of a child's first day at school, the bittersweet pride of parents watching their offspring leave home. These shared experiences, so personal and yet universal, broke down barriers of misunderstanding and fear. As the visions faded, Brian and Yara moved to stand beside their son. The assembled soldiers and scientists stared in awe at the family, their appearance a harmonious blend of human and Hazari traits. We are living proof, Brian said, his voice strong and clear, that our species are not meant to be at odds, but to come together in peace and understanding. Yara nodded, her iridescent skin shimmering. Our son, Zane, is not just a hybrid of our races. He represents the potential for a future where we all benefit from the strengths of both our peoples. At the back of the room, Admiral Thorne and High Commander Zex locked eyes. Their bodies, altered by the biological agent, tingled with new sensations. Suddenly, a telepathic link formed between them. This is incredible, Thorne's thoughts echoed in Zex's mind. Indeed, Zex responded silently. I can see your memories, feel your emotions. We've been so wrong about each other. Their silent conversation lasted mere seconds, but it was enough to change everything. Thorne raised his hand, signaling his troops to stand down. Zex did the same, and the tension in the room dissipated. Dr. Ziri seized the moment, stepping forward with a holographic display. Esteemed leaders, allow me to present our findings, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Zane's unique genetic makeup offers unprecedented possibilities for both our species. Dr. Chorus joined her, adding, the adaptive stem cells produced by Zane could be the key to solving a myriad of medical challenges, including the Hazare's fertility issues. As the scientists explained their research, Brian watched the faces of those around him. Where there had been hostility and fear, he now saw curiosity and hope. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Admiral Thorne cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. In light of these extraordinary circumstances, he began, his voice gruff but not unkind, I propose we establish this facility as a neutral zone for continued research. High Commander Zex nodded in agreement. We should form a joint human Hazari scientific commission to oversee the work here. Cooperation, not conflict, is clearly the path forward. As discussions began in earnest, Brian felt a tugging on his hand. He looked down to see Zane, his eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and exhaustion. Dad, the boy said softly, did we do it? Did we stop the fighting? Brian knelt down, pulling his son into a tight embrace. Yes, Zane, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. You did something amazing today. You showed everyone the truth, that we're all more alike than we are different. Yara joined them, wrapping her arms around her family. As they stood together, a living symbol of unity, Brian realized that this was not an ending, but a beginning. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but also with unprecedented opportunities for growth and understanding. Around them, humans and Hazari began to mingle, sharing stories and examining their altered appearances with fascination. The atmosphere in the room had transformed from one of confrontation to one of cautious optimism. Dr. Siri approached the family, her eyes shining with excitement. We have so much work ahead of us, she said, barely containing her enthusiasm. The potential applications of our research are staggering. As she began to outline her plans for future studies, Brian's mind raced with the implications. This was more than just a scientific breakthrough. It was the dawn of a new era in human-Hazari relations, an era that his family had helped usher in. Zane tugged on his sleeve, pulling him from his thoughts. What happens now, Dad? The boy asked, his voice filled with curiosity and a hint of apprehension. Brian looked at his son, then at Yara, and finally at the diverse group of humans and Hazari now engaged in animated conversation around them. He took a deep breath, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Now, he said, a smile spreading across his face, we build a future together.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.